have an all-star season, Fabian.
Yeah, this is a guy who looks like he's taken another step forward from what we saw last year. And last year, he was a borderline all-star in the first half of the season. Like, this is a guy who continually has kind of shown a level of adaptability that I think even Dodgers people weren't fully expecting. This is a guy who, when he was a prospect, this is a bigger corner outfielder, slugger type, like the steepest launch angle in the minor leagues. Like, you thought that this was the sort of archetype of guy. Then he all of a sudden comes back off shoulder surgery way faster than expected. He's dropped all this weight. He can play center field. Like, this guy who's obviously suddenly has some speed and has some adaptability. And this is like they're talking about his bat to ball. This is a guy who has shown an ability to work and adjust. And some of the things I wrote about in spring training, like with him going into the trajectory for a half hour every single day, 10 minutes for just reading out pitches, 10 minutes saying ball or strike, 10 minutes actually having to swing at certain pitches that are borderline and understanding the pitches that are going to work for you, not just determining balls and strikes, but balls that you can do damage on. I think that work, you've seen that. You've seen some of the adjustments to his swing where his bat's a little bit flatter to start, and he's sort of more hunched into his stance a little bit more, not as upright as he was his first couple of years in the big leagues. This is a guy who has continually shown an ability to grow, to adjust. And I think that's one of those things that, like, you can bank on a guy like that. Obviously, there are going to be limitations to his game. Always, this is not going to be a guy who's going to be drawing extreme walk rates. But if he can sort of tweak the dials a little bit more, where he can actually work counts a little bit better, get better pitches to hit, even if your play discipline isn't just about drawing walks, it's about getting into favorable counts, getting the pitches that you want in your zones, and having an ability to do damage on them. And yeah, he's off to a record start, like a really, really good start. We saw obviously the last game, Golden Sombrero, like there's going to be some like natural like progression there. But this is a guy who I think a lot of the changes that you're seeing, you can sort of believe in just because knowing the guy and knowing how he got to that point.
Yeah, and really this is a team that didn't have an answer at center field for a while. I mean, they were talking about Luis Robert Jr. and some other options, and it looks like they found their next great homegrown star. We haven't really had one since Will Smith that has really emerged to this level. Jerry, do you see this as a sustainable bat? I mean, obviously, he's not going to lead the league in hits like he does right now and have a weighted runs created plus over 200, but do you feel like there's going to be a big leap made as far as his all-star bat level production for the majority of the season?
I will say this. I think he made the leap last year in the first half because I thought he should have been an all-star. I think what really got him was that first full season. I'm telling you guys, it really wears on everybody. It is such a tough league, obviously the big leagues, but to play that first full year when teams are constantly making adjustments on you, you got to make adjustments back, and playing a demanding position like he has to play, I think he just wore down mentally and physically. Now he's better equipped, understanding what he needs to do for an entire full season, but also an entire postseason World Series. So I think he's more confident, understanding what he's trying to accomplish on the field. But I think more importantly, what the opposition is trying to do to him. And Fabian laid out a great thing what he does. This kid works extremely hard. I mean, I've been there a couple of times early, seeing him, making sure his swing is on point, making sure he's able to track pitches, making sure he's ready to go defensively, going back on balls, coming in on balls, going up against the wall. This kid has made himself into a really good big leaguer. And Fabian made a great point. You bank on guys like that. This kid does not take anything for granted. He has made himself into a really good big leaguer, not just as far as him mentally, but physically as well. I mean, he was a little heftier, a few years back. He was, but I think that had a lot to do with the surgery too. He couldn't do a lot of workouts, but now he's made himself into a guy that looks to me like Teoscar Hernandez when he's cut all that body fat and is ripped and understanding, hey, I need speed. I need to be dynamic to play center field. And this guy continues to make himself better. And I love guys that had to work for it, man, had to grind for it. Nothing was given to him. And you bank on guys like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The work ethic feels like it's off the charts. I mean, he does appear like he's one of the first guys out there on the field. I remember being out there 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He's playing catch with Miguel Vargas a couple years ago. Actually hit me with a baseball. It's my fault for not paying attention, but I'll never forget it. Hey, Andy Paz is here working the outfield. Like he's doing his thing and talking to Dino Ebel, just working on that first step, working on those reads. And it's a cool thing to see a big leaguer that's on a roster like this with all these made men kind of figured out the way he has. Feels like Fabian, he's in a good spot as far as where he does bat in the lineup. I mean, he's kind of talked about this. I mean, Dave's mentioned how the other pitcher, they have to be perfect. They have to execute. And then when you're going through that 1 through 5, and then you really can't take a breath, and then Páez is there. He's got the information from the top of the lineup, and he's going out there and he's putting on good swings. It feels like this is a good spot for him where other organizations, you might batting 3 or 4 at this point, 2, 3, or 4. With the Dodgers, you kind of eat down in the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah, and it's funny to think about like where he was this time last year, which is he had a really, really rough start to the season. He defensively was making some mistakes, base running was making some mistakes, and he just was not hitting. And I think one of the things that like he talked about was he just wasn't comfortable hitting ninth in the lineup. He just there's something in his brain that like he was trying to do too much. He was trying to see too many pitches. He was trying to focus so hard on getting on base for Shohei Ohtani that he got out of his approach and what makes him him. I think there's something to a confidence he developed last year, understanding that, and he hit really well in bottom of the lineup to start the season this year. Obviously, he's moving up higher now, partially because of how well he's hitting, partially because Mookie Betts isn't in there. But this is a guy who understands what he has to do at the plate. And I think one of the things that works about the Dodgers' collective approach usually is they do a lot of things well as a team. Like they don't chase usually. They do certain things that are identifiable for a Dodger lineup. But something that Freddie Freeman's kind of talked about, like, yes, there is a team approach, but that team approach is consists of every guy knowing what their actual approach and their individual approach is, what makes them work, what makes them successful, because these guys are all-stars or capable players for a reason. And Páez, I think, has settled into that, like understanding like there's still some team at-bats he has to take and stuff like that, but he knows at this point what he needs to do to get the pitches he needs to hit.
Yeah, and you certainly can see there's a major difference. And a couple weeks ago, you reported that the Dodgers have not broached the subject of an extension for Andy Páez. Of course, for people like myself, I eat that kind of stuff up. And you look at Andy Páez, he's under control through the 2030 season. He'll be 30 when he's eligible for free agency during that offseason. He is in line to get Super 2 status, so he'll earn himself an extra year of arbitration eligibility. So if they did get him under an extension, it would give the Dodgers some cost certainty, which would be potentially some increasing arbitration numbers. But this is not what the Dodgers do. I mean, this is not how the Dodgers do business. But what can you say just about the possibility of an extension for Andy Páez and how that looks like from the Dodgers' angle?
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers have tried in the past with like certain guys. I think one of the things I kind of wrote about, like I didn't realize until I was sort of asking around about Andy, was sort of they tried to extend. Well, we kind of knew that they were trying to extend Walker Buehler, but they tried to extend to Gavin Lux. They tried to extend to Dustin May, and sometimes like those things kind of work out in a sense where you sort of understand how talented these guys are, and sometimes it makes sense to go out for the extension early on, try to lock up some cost certainty, like you said, banking on who the guy is. I don't see them going for an extension with Andy Páez right now, just because, like you mentioned, like he is under control for a while. This is a guy who is Super 2 eligible, where I think one of the comparisons I did was based off of Pete Crow-Armstrong just getting his contract extension. He wasn't Super 2 eligible. He's also a guy who, like, as good as Andy Páez has turned himself into as a defensive center fielder, Pete Crow-Armstrong is like clearly like perhaps the best center fielder defensively in the game. So like there's another aspect to that as well. But this is a guy who, in some senses, it maybe makes sense for him on his side of things to maybe seek out an extension. But I do think for the Dodgers, I think they know that they have center field in a good spot for the next 4 or 5 years with him under club control. But they don't necessarily have to lock themselves into him in center field, especially with some of the young outfielders that they have coming up.
And Jerry, you probably want to see him do this for an entire season from start to finish too, before you want to come to the conclusion where you want to give him a big contract like that. I mean, I look at Will Smith's deal, and that bought out the last 2 years for him, but he was a little further along in the process. I mean, I do think that. Do you think, Jerry, though, that as a player to play in this league, that kind of stuff is entering the back of your mind, even the front of your mind, if you're Andy Páez, seeing the success that you could have? I mean, being an all-star for the Dodgers, I mean, that's something great to have on your resume for sure.
Without question. I mean, listen, it does creep in your mind. Everybody, always thinks about, the future and what could happen. But I think for him, knowing that you're a Super 2, that means you have 4 chances of arbitration. That is absolutely huge for a player. I was a Super 2 player, so I wasn't in a rush back in the day to kind of get my contract, done, because I had 4 chances to make a really good payday. So that's a good thing for Andy Paez. And for the Dodgers, yeah, you want to let him continue playing. Don't get distracted. It's never a bad thing to allow players to have their season. Remember, last year, it was his first full season. He had some ups and downs, especially in the first half. He had a huge up, but like Fabian mentioned, he started out slow last season. And some fans were saying, hey, he needs to go back down to AAA. But I love that the Dodgers continue to stick with Andy Paez, allow him to kind of develop here at the big league level, and players need to do that. And let Andy have his season this year. Let him do his thing. Let him focus on the season. Hopefully help us win